She was a rising star, an educated, accomplished woman breaking barriers in a city where the rules had long been written by someone else. Her work demanded respect. Her drive inspired those around her. Young, determined, and unafraid, she wasn't just part of the change, she was helping shape it. But in the heat of a Louisville summer night in 1965, her voice was silenced, her life stolen. It was the kind of violence that doesn't just end a life, it sends a message. If it could happen to her, it could happen to anyone. And while the headlines faded, the silence around what happened never did. Decades later, the truth is still out there, buried beneath fear, failure, and the passage of time. This is a story of Alberta Jones. Hello, friends. My name is Marcia, and this is Midwest Murders. In 1965, Louisville's West End was a neighborhood defined by both struggle and resilience. It was home to a predominantly black population, many of whom had migrated from the rural South seeking better opportunities during and after World War II. The area had once seen investment and vitality, but by the mid-20th century, it was beginning to suffer from neglect, redlining, and the early effects of white flight. Segregation, while no longer legally enforced, still shaped daily life. Schools, housing, and employment remained unequal. Activists and professionals in the black community were pushing hard for civil rights, and some were gaining ground. Tensions ran high between progress and backlash, with the civil rights movement in full swing across the South and reaching deep into Kentucky. Louisville had just experienced the passage of one of the first open housing ordinances, but that progress was met with protests and resistance. The West End was not just a geographic location, it was the heart of a community caught between hope and hostility. It was against this backdrop that Alberta ventured into the West End to meet a friend and never returned. Alberta Jones, age 32, was born and raised in Louisville. Graduating from the University of Louisville and Howard Law School in Washington, D.C., where she graduated fourth in a class of 70, she returned to Louisville and in 1959 became one of the first black women to pass the Kentucky bar exam. She opened a small law office at 2018 West Broadway, on the edge of the West End. While she wasn't the first black female lawyer to practice in Kentucky, that honor went to Sally J. Seals White in 1904. Alberta was the first black woman to practice law in Louisville. She was active in the Falls City and Kentucky Bar Associations and the Independent Voters Association, which she helped organize to educate and register black voters in Louisville and Jefferson County. She was a member of the Phillips Chapel CME Church. In February 1965, she was appointed prosecuting attorney for the Domestic Relations Court in Louisville, the first woman to hold that position. She lived at 3237 Virginia Avenue with her widowed mother, Mrs. Sadie Jones, and her sister, Mrs. Letitia Flora Shanklin, along with Flora's 8-year-old daughter and 7-year-old son. She had a brother, Calvin, who lived in Los Angeles. What happened next raises a chilling question. Was this personal, political, or something even more sinister? On the evening of Wednesday, August 4, 1965, Alberta was at home when she received a telephone call from a friend at about 10 p.m. The friend, Gladys Wyckoff, asked Alberta to come to her salon at 2105 West Broadway to be fitted for a wig Alberta had ordered, if it were convenient. Alberta drove to Gladys's salon, which was just across the street from her old law office. She was fitted for the wig, and then at about 11:45 p.m., the two women drove downtown to a restaurant on 4th Street at River Road. After eating, they returned to Gladys's home, talked for a while, and Alberta left at 1:30 a.m., still wearing her new wig. When she failed to return home by early Thursday morning and her mother could not locate her, at 1:30 p.m. Thursday afternoon she was reported missing. Earlier that same morning at 10:35 a.m., boys playing along the bank of the Ohio River spotted a body in shallow water about 15 feet from the bank at the rear of Fontaine Ferry Park. Police arrived and pulled a deceased young female from the river. She was fully clothed except her shoes were missing. There were 2 small cuts on her face which could have been made accidentally. The body would later be identified as Alberta by Darrell Owens, who shared office space with her. Alberta wore both upper and lower dentures, and both were missing. Her cause of death would ultimately be ruled a drowning, although it appeared she had been beaten on the head prior to ending up in the river. That same morning, her shoes were found by a mowing machine operator at the Shawnee Golf Course about 10 feet from the south exit of the Sherman-Minton Bridge. This caused police to initially theorize that she was thrown from the bridge. About 2 months later, they changed their position after the Corps of Engineers pointed out that the current of 1.5 miles per hour on the night Alberta died was not strong enough to carry her upstream to where she was found. They also reported that her body would have drifted to the Indiana side of the river instead of the Kentucky side. This led police to now believe she had been thrown into the river at the foot of West Market Street. Alberta had been driving a rental car on the night she was killed because her own vehicle was in the repair shop. Her rental car was located Friday night in the 3100 block of Dell Park Terrace. Fingerprints were found on the steering wheel and particles of a brick were found in the car. Alberta's upper denture plate was also found, and there was a large blood stain on the back seat. Altogether, 35 pieces of evidence were collected and sent to the FBI for testing. Nothing was found that could be of assistance. Police interviewed hundreds of individuals and did find several witnesses. After leaving Gladys's home, Alberta apparently stopped at a convenience store at 28th and Broadway for soft drinks. The owner was not sure if she bought one or several, but recalled she was talking to 2 men. Members of a West End family reported hearing a woman scream at about 2:15 a.m. Thursday morning. They looked out their window and saw a woman being dragged by a man into the back seat of a car. At least one other man was in the car. While they were never publicly identified, they lived only 3 blocks from where Alberta's car was found. The color and make of the car the witnesses saw matched that of the car Alberta was driving. Although Alberta had made some enemies, police struggled for a motive. Some thought it was revenge because of her work with the court. She had prosecuted hundreds of cases since her appointment as prosecutor 5 months earlier, and all her cases were being studied. Others thought it might be tied to her civil rights work. Her work with the Independent Voters Association wasn't just empowering a community, it was shifting the balance of political power. For the first time, city officials, judges, and law enforcement faced the real possibility of being voted out of office by those they had long marginalized. In response to fears within the community, police moved the 4th Police District's boundary by 4 blocks to permit a greater concentration of officers in the West End. Alberta's funeral was held at the Quinn Chapel AME Church with family, friends, and members of Louisville's elected and legal community in attendance. She was laid to rest in the Greenwood Cemetery in Louisville. A memorial dinner was held by the Independent Voters Association. Her estate was valued at just over $66,000, nearly $686,000 in today's money. She owned 7 parcels of real estate and some personal property. Because she left no will, under Kentucky law at the time, her mother inherited the entire estate. In 1968, 4 boys who were climbing the Sherman-Minton Bridge structure found a purse lodged in a 4-foot round hole in the girder. It was on the west end of the bridge where the substructure extends out about a foot further than the Louisville-bound lanes 8 feet above. It was identified as belonging to Alberta and was in exceptionally good shape, even though it had apparently been exposed to the elements since her death 3 years earlier. Police theorized that the purse was tossed over by the killers and it became caught on the girder. The contents included her wallet with no cash, identification, credit cards, a $200 check she had made out to herself, a partial dental plate, and several key rings. In 2010, police sent the 6 fingerprints that were collected from the car's steering wheel to the FBI lab to be retested. One matched a man living in Orange County, California, who was just 17 at the time of Alberta's murder. He denied any involvement in the crime, but failed a polygraph exam. Because police could not locate any of the other evidence collected from the scene, and it could not be determined where in the car the fingerprint had been found, officials refused to prosecute the case. While they believed they had found a legitimate suspect, they simply didn't have the evidence needed to proceed. Alberta was more than a headline, more than a name in an unsolved case file. The investigation into her murder went cold quickly. Evidence was lost, leads were abandoned, and whether by design or neglect, the silence around her death has lasted for decades. I can't help but wonder, in a city where the old guard still held sway, where racial lines were tightly drawn and power was jealously guarded, did a rising influence make her a target? And if she had been white, would the investigation have been handled differently? Would somebody have been held accountable? There is the possibility that she was attacked by a disgruntled defendant, and that theory has followed the case for decades. But there's also this. Alberta was the 5th woman murdered in Louisville's West End in just over a year. All of those cases remain unsolved. That kind of pattern raises questions of its own. Was this personal, political, or part of something even larger and more sinister? We may never know for certain who took her life, but we do know what she stood for, and that's something time can't erase. She believed in justice. She worked for it every day. And even now, her story demands that we keep asking questions until there are answers. If you have any thoughts or theories about this case, please leave them in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and may the truth reveal itself in the shadows.